Yo, my dudes, welcome back to another chat to do all things Super Sentai. Oh, that thing's broken.
Everything's broken.
Oh, duh, duh, duh.
It wouldn't be a
There we go.
Sentai roundup without things breaking. Oh,
Yeah, Sentai. Yeah, it's always fun to have little issues now and again. But anyway, so yeah, welcome back. This time we're going to be talking about episode 15 of Zenkaiger, as well as going over a little something quite special. Now, excuse me for a moment while I just sort out one little thing because
do I think
you can
there?
see everything behind me.
There we go. That's what I
That's
was gonna
better.
say. I was gonna say
That's what I was
blade
missing.
background.
Okay, so yeah, today now we're specifically going to be talking about vintage Sentais and how they would actually be used in modern day and how much they would actually, would they actually look good now? Would they look really dated and not fit in? That's what we're going to discuss about today. Now, is there any particular Super Sentai that stands out most to you out of all of the shows that have been released during the 80s and 90s?
We're talking 80s and 90s, and we're not saying Gokaiger because that's the only one that really stands out. I would probably say Jetman really kind of stands out because I think the costume design is absolutely stunning. They look like I know they didn't have it as the Power Rangers. I kind of thought it'd be really cool, but I think out of all the ones I can think of, Jetman's the one that slaps me in the face and goes, "Oi, sure you pay attention to me."
Yeah. Like the one that always really confused me is probably Battle Fever J.
Yeah.
That's the one that stands out. But just before we get on to more of that, actually, one thing I should say is with me today is my good pal Mark as always, Erlem.
I think I
Thank you for
think
joining us.
I think people know who I am now. It's fine. It's
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay.
But yeah, and then I'm Henshin bringing all the Sentai hype, and yeah, hopefully at some point we'll have someone else joining us, but we'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, there is one thing I would say about Battle Fever J, which is I really thought having a wig on the helmet is probably the worst designs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I say that, but obviously that sort of style is just generic to what obviously they thought would be good for a superheroes at the time. The only time I've seen anything close to what they had for Miss America in terms of modern day is Q Rangers or Cami Blue,
Yeah.
because they had where he's is insignia as a wolf and he's supposed to be like the Wild Star. I don't know if some people noticed, but like on his arms and sleeves, like generally his deco on his suit actually is fur. Like
Mm.
it's not like any other ranger. It's literally like they've got carpet on his arms, and it
That's what a
works really
carpet
well
was.
for him. Yeah. So in that way, there has been some elements of vintage stuff that are actually worked quite well. Now, is there a particular team before perhaps Ranger that you like the most, Erlen?
I probably would say I have because I've not watched a lot of Sentai. So I would kind of think I'm gonna stick with Jetman. That's the word I was looking for.
Jetman, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one that kind of stands out in my eyes. But I think I never watched Sentai. The only full Sentais I've watched is like Gokaiger, Lupin versus Pata Ranger and stuff like that. And I think that's particularly it right now.
Yeah.
So I did start watching Go Onja, but then I kind of stopped and I was just like, university. I'll catch up in a few weeks. Like a year later, oh crap, I'm only up to episode 14. I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, I have the same problem. It's very difficult. I've only watched, as you stated, I've watched all of Go Kaijo and Cop of all the seasons to date. Um, but I'm trying to go through all the Super Sentais from Ranger because I never got Jetman,
Mm.
and it's difficult to get those DVDs in now, it seems. But yeah, Ranger and Ranger I've completed. I'm halfway through Kaku Ranger, and I've been stuck on that the same as you for probably about a year. But I say that my favorite in all of the old ones is actually Mask Man,
Mm.
because if you really look at the detail on that helmet, it's one of a kind. I really love it, and I think it's a shame that like it's one of those seasons, isn't it? Because obviously before changes were a thing, it was a it was transformation, but it was very, very dumbed down compared to what we have now.
Mm.
And when you look back at, say, Go Ranger and even Battle Fever J, it's just very odd that even Gokaiger, when they use those suits, the transformation's generically the same because they don't have a changer.
Mm.
So I always thought that was the weirdest thing that doesn't really work now because there's always a gimmick now.
Yeah.
Now, the only series I can, well, I think gimmick is an important thing I should state first because there's a lot of story elements that could be used for it. Now, that can obviously be clearly shown when it comes to Super Mega Force and Ninja Steel,
Mm.
both Power Ranger seasons based on very popular Super Sentai seasons, Gokaiger and Nin Ninja. However, Pirate theme was completely gone. The Ninja theme wasn't focused upon in Nin Ninja, and it just feels like there was a lost opportunity.
Mm.
With obviously the changes and stuff back in the day, they didn't really have those gimmicks to them. Denji Man first brought out the rings, and it went on from there. Um, Apart from Mask Man, who seemed to use auras for their transformation, wasn't it? They all had different
Mm.
sort of like ways of combining their hands and stuff. I think that's the only thing I didn't like about that season, the fact they didn't have a changer. Now, is there any sort of like transformation that you've seen of these previous Sentais that you don't think would work well nowadays, Mark?
I think anything from, I think if you're talking about gimmick wise, I think a lot of the Sentais, like America didn't really kind of focus on gimmicks. It's not a big thing. Where Japan, I think now, I think probably the biggest one because I'm looking at all the like all the stuff. So Goa Ranger had jewels, Hurricane had medals, Go Ranger had souls. And I think to be fair, the biggest ones was Go Kaija that had the keys. That
Yeah.
was the biggest gimmick. And then when you looked at the next year when it did Go Buster, there was no gimmick, and I think the toys flopped. It was very hard to Sentai that literally just went, here's 35 years. But it hasn't, like, even when you look at other ones, like even like say the Lupin versus Pata, they haven't been really good ones. Like you have the Ria Souls, which you could say would be the next one up. Batteries from thingy, trains from Tokuja. But I think the biggest one
Yeah.
so far at the moment has been the Sentai gears. And I find that if you're going to go through a gimmick wise now, I think if you have the Ranger on there, then it does something. I think you get more from it.
Yeah.
From past Sentais, I just don't think anything, probably Battle Fever J would, if you did all the others, maybe and Denjiman, you pro and Flashman. I don't think that they would be okay, but
Yeah.
I do think that if you took some of their suits, like say if you took Flashman, that would look okay because it's been modernized than what it was back in the day. And I think you
Yeah.
could bring it into, like say, the Power Ranger fandom, or you can bring Sentai and focus it because the suits have all been remade. So, it's kind of like, oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, what about the mechas? Now, obviously, there's a few of the early ones that didn't really have a Zord as we know them as now. Now, is there any particular ones that you think didn't really stand the test of time?
That is a good question, and I am totally not Googling right now Super Sentai Mecha so I can have a look. Um, that is there, but literally, I did not put Sentai in. I don't know, to be fair, because my Mecha knowledge for the Power Rangers or Super Sentai was only from Thingamabob. So I probably would think if test of time,
Yeah.
I would probably say maybe the giant like ones that were very like Leopold from Spider-Man, like big kind of. They move the arms up and down. They don't move.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think what what there is because I know that there's tons of them. Yeah, I think any sort of mech that would just move its arm up and down that you can't pose, I think that kind of works well. But I don't know all of them, so maybe like Flash King or whatever. I don't know. I don't know all the names, unfortunately. Um, yeah, probably anything that turned into a jet. That is
Yeah,
what.
yeah. Yeah, I think we've already gone through this before, but there are certain Sentai robos which I really like. I can't remember which one it is. I know there's one of them that featured three machines that I think it was like two jets and a land vehicle, I think it was, or something like that, and it was pretty basic. But like it had like a 3D combination effect where the plane would obviously have the arm come off. I'll have to look into it and try and bring it up in the next show. But it had like a 3D Gatai, I believe they pretty
Yeah.
much called it in the series. That was one of the earliest robos that I thought was really good.
Mm.
Obviously, Mask Man, that was really really good. I loved how the two jets cockpits went into the art to form the shoulders and stuff.
Mm.
That was a really good design. But yeah, I think most of the early ones were really just sort of single made robots, weren't they? There weren't really much
Yeah.
to them. I think that's the one thing that makes Power Rangers stand out more. Sorry, Super Sentai and Power Rangers stand out more than Transformers, is because it has that combination thing. Obviously, we've seen that Transformers have that, but it made Super Sentai and that stand out more when it had that kind of combination thing going on.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think.
I think everyone knows about my Turbo Ranger preferences. Like that if you know a Sentai's not that great when you have two Rangers who are just feet.
Yeah. I think obviously with the way the mechs are. I mean, I think until quite, I'm gonna say until Jew Ranger at least. I
Yeah.
think when you follow the formula from Japanese Spider-Man, and that's the same sort of thing where you don't really have much movement. I think then
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting to say, oh, well, that's what we're going to do, and then obviously they've had to change and adapt. So then they go, well, now we've got like this thing Megazord that can walk around like quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is good how we've got that sort of transference. So it's nice to see something old be remade into something better.
Yeah.
So it makes me kind of wish that they remade some of the Megazords though from the past. It's like, in fact, we're going to do it this way because you look at I think Sun Vulcan's a good actually a really good example. So obviously, as we know them now, the Rangers, you kind of guess what Zord they have because it is their emblem. It is part of them. It's what they end up getting.
Mm.
Back then, Sun Vulcan, they had animal motifs, but they didn't have animal Zords.
Mm.
That's the one thing that really confused me. However, for the time, it did look great. There wasn't really any sort of like problem. It just like worked for them, and
Yeah.
I think from what I've been hearing, it was a really good season.
Mm.
So that's why there's a little bit of nostalgia of that one. I mean, I could be wrong, but it does appear to be a fan favorite in some regard. So I think that is definitely one to give a watch to.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean, I
think,
think.
yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, you're on.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that but the way stories have evolved as well, because obviously back then it was very episodic. Now we're starting to get a little bit more of a patterns involved with story.
Mm.
So you have the episodic feature, but they all generally lead to something. You get that. It's basically what we're seeing with Stay Caesar and whatnot.
Yeah.
If they ever done it episodic again, which makes it quite difficult to watch stuff like Zero Ranger and Die Ranger, then I do worry about what's going to happen with Super Sentai in the future.
Yeah, I think with episodic stuff, it's fine where you know exactly it's the same sort of formula for years. I think now, as obviously storytelling has changed over time, it's now gotten to the point where people want that kind of what happens next. You know, back in the day before this happened, when it was like, here's a two-part, you're like, oh my god, what happened next? And now it's more kind of like it just kind of flows a little bit more. So I think it's one of those up and down type things. I think that if the story is boring, though, regardless of it doesn't matter how many cool things that you throw at it, if the story stays exactly the same, like with a bit like with Zenkaiger, it's just more of a I don't want to watch this next one, and then it becomes just a chore to watch because you want
Yeah.
the next one. So like when we've discussed like how we can have great episodes, but then all of a sudden it's just more like I just want to watch to know what gear they're going to use this week because,
Yeah.
toy sales and stuff like that. Or, oh, what does it do apart from give them a giant mallet that just pops them on the head? Who
Yeah.
knew?
Okay, well, on that note, let's move on to the episode review of this particular series.
Mm.
So we're going back to Zenkaiger now, and in the honor of this particular subject was for this particular episode. So in it, we generally had retro world change the whole environment and
Mm.
cause things to go back in time. Now, I'm gonna go straight on a whim to say this was a Yak-chan episode. I loved it. I so loved this episode.
I I did feel like it was her sort of episode to kind of really kind of go for, because it was more like her character building, but it was like, when I was a kid, I did all of this, and you're like, cool, cool. Let's go with this one. Let's go for you. So I kind of liked it, but now that'll be the only episode she gets, and she will never get another one.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I bet she'll have a moment when Kaito's parents come back into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything was centered around here. It was brilliant. So yeah, the way obviously Retro World worked, it literally warped everything so that it was nostalgia. It
Mm.
was back to sort of like 80s, but then there was also 90s elements and 70s elements. It was all sort of thrown in together, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
Now, as for the environment, it seems like they were taking opportunity to use what they had because of COVID restrictions.
Mm.
Sorry, COVID restrictions. So, do you think that the environment they had was just an opportunity to tell this sort of story?
Yeah. It felt, when I watched it, I was like, I'm really glad that they're using a different area. That, I didn't feel like it had COVID restrictions, because obviously you had quite a lot of people there. But I like the fact that they utilized a new area, and I think that's what kind of made me just go, "Oh, that's really cool." So, because I'm like, the toy buildings and stuff like that. They do have like theme parks. I'm sure they have like sets that they've built, and it kind of reminded me of like Universal Studios, where you
Yeah.
go around the lot and you go, "This is where we film Back to the Future 3 and 1, 2, and 3. This is where we film Friends. That's the Big Bang Theory when they go to the park." And I'm just like, do you know what? I'm kind of on board for this. Normally you see like, it's the base, it's the same place around. So they're using different space. Like, if you looked at the very
Yeah.
beginning, it was like, let's go shoot in the car park. Okay, let's go. And that was it.
Okay, so in this episode, Mark, what features stood out to you?
I think I think there's like, I don't know if there's one or two moments that made me actually laugh. But I really liked Tech Chan going around and looking at all the stuff. And it's like, when I was doing it, like, look at this old TV. Where's the remote? Silly, we didn't have no remotes back then. You had to turn it over. And I was like, I kind of like that, but they put in the whole, like, the TV going like different colors. And when you
Yeah.
watch old Japanese films, when they do that, I'm like, I can see that. But I think one of the things that made me laugh is when Two-Kaiser gets his morpher turned back into a piece of wood, and he starts
Yes.
just doing it, and he just starts dancing, and I could hear it, because you don't hear the bell, but when he goes like tap tap, I could hear the music. So it's been drilled into me, and then he's just like, oh no. But I think one of the biggest things was Flint wearing that 90s get up. Perfect in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that was a brilliant moment with Zox having that. It was really hilarious, especially when he didn't notice until he tried firing it to transform. I thought
Mm,
that was great.
yeah.
Um, yeah, personally, my favorite parts were generally um, whenever they were sort of like trying to help the kid out, because Yak-chan was like just so motherly and trying to help her out and keeping optimistic about the whole thing. Um, then we obviously had all the different costumes that each of the Kikanoids and stuff were wearing, because you had like different ones. You basically had a Gowon that seemed like a kind of hippie.
Yeah.
You had what can only be described as a Sherlock Holmes style for Vroon. I'm not entirely sure what Imagine was. I'm a little bit
Hello
lost on that
Kitty.
one.
It was
Or is it
Hello
Hello
Kitty.
Kitty? Ah.
Like, I I looked at it and I was just like, I'm sure I recognize that, because at first I was like, "Oh, is she dressed like a school kid type thing, like, like the toddler type thing?" And I was like, no, I kind of recognize that. I was like, I bet that's something like 80s Hello Kitty or something. I was like,
Yeah.
so that's the only one I kind of thought of. which I was like, that's kind of cool. It suits her, but then doesn't at the same time. So I was okay with
Yeah.
it.
And then you had obviously Juran. It was kind of like old school gangster. Like I only know this because of Yakuza, so that's the sort of
Mm.
style I'm kind of getting off him. Um, but yeah, I thought that was really, and it meets his like character like perfectly. Like it was so his era right
Mm.
there. So I thought that was fantastic. Um, but my all-time favorite was just seeing Kaito and the others finally arrive when Zox was starting to attack, and they're all well, the second time obviously, and then they all go in. We can't let him outshine us this time. I was like, thank you, go.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. Like I'm having a look at like the locations that they've got at the moment, and there's
Yeah,
quite a lot. So I think like I didn't realize how much there is over at Zenkaiger and not Zenkaiger, sorry, Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, but they could
yeah,
easily film in so many stuff, but they all kind of look really old. Um,
yeah.
so I like that. Like I really want to know because if when I go to Japan, I would love to visit the old set that they used in this episode because I think that
Yeah, it
looked
would be great. Yeah.
actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. One thing that we should do is point out that this episode actually perfectly sets up a lot more than we was expecting. I honestly thought that this was going to be one of those gimmicky episodes, but we find out more about Yak Chan. We find more about background. Nostalgia was a weakness at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic idea, and Stacy is involved in it. He actually looks at Yak Chan and sees that it's like his mother.
Mm.
I thought that was a brilliant and huge twist that I didn't see coming. I was not expecting him to ever get to sort of that sort of, you know, I never expected Stacy to connect with the other guys through Yak-chan. I always assumed that that Stacy would somehow just spin off in his own way and end up going against the the Toji Empire and whatnot, and then obviously end up coming to his senses a bit and working with
Mm.
the other guys. I never expected the possible link between them to be Yak-chan, and that's what's going to be shown and that's what's been shown for the next episode. What did you think of this particular change in story?
I kind of liked it because it shows growth for him, not just the generic, bad guy. And I kind of think what's going to happen is at the very end of the series, he's going to join the family. That's the one thing that I know what's going to happen because
You think?
it'll
Yeah.
be, yeah, I think she'll come along and she'll say something like, "Stop, Stacy, just stop," and he'll be like, "No, section, no," or literally as soon as it's like they've destroyed the bad guy, he'll be like, "I have nowhere to go. You can stay with us, but I hurt you and I tried to kidnap you and I didn't mean to. Blah blah blah. It's okay. It's all forgiven. You're part of the family now. Okay." And then it's like, "I finally got a brother, a machine brother. Woo! The first in the world." That'll be it. I'm
um,
calling it now.
I do like how the little bits of technology were involved in this episode as well. Because obviously we did have a lot of stuff involving Yak Chan and technology, which was great. Um, but then we also had moments involving Sek Chan, so he wasn't affected by all of this, which is great because I didn't want that bird to degrade.
Yeah, can you imagine? I would love it if it was just a wooden bird. That's all I would want, just a wooden bird. But
Or
did
like
you
a
notice?
Victoria rustic design sort of thing.
You
That would
know
have
it
been
would be
interesting.
perfect. But
Yeah.
did you notice that the Zenkaiger's weapons didn't get turned back into something at all? But,
I reckon I have a fear about this because of the fact that the world that the Kikonoids come from generally isn't devolving technology, and Pirate World has got advanced technology because of like the likes of Flint. I reckon that's the difference.
hmm,
So old school for our world is different compared to old school in the Kikonoid world. So that's
okay.
why their stuff wasn't affected. That's my best guess.
I would,
Um, I loved how the way they broke the spell because obviously the extra effect that they didn't show, like obviously Retro World changed the world and caused it to go back to that sort of era when it
hmm,
was like clustered townhouses, no lights, just very old fashioned and almost samurai like,
yeah.
which made Twokai-Oh katana, a perfect match. But also he made people feel down about changes, which is what the boy was suffering when he moved there because he was so shy, which latches on to your favourite character being so related to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was nice to see a little bit of that change for um, Majin.
Mm.
But it was the fact that Majin, Duran, Gowon, and Vroon all suffered in the past in different ways. Gowon hating that he wasn't around animals and stuff. He didn't like Kikinoids. He wasn't even aware of animals at the time. I don't think they have it in their world. But then you obviously have Duran always getting beaten up on by the the Empire's people. You have
Mm.
Vroon working as a cleaner and being mistreated because he never got to learn more. And then obviously you've got Majin, who was so shy as a child that she couldn't really connect with other people. All of that feeling of the nostalgia completely wiped them out because they didn't want to be part of that anymore. They didn't want to remember. They wanted to be in the present. They
Mm.
hated it, so it broke the spell for them. And I thought that was a brilliant concept for that.
I don't think I could have sat through the episode of where they're all going, oh, why? Like I understand it. Like I understand that bad memories, but for the heroes, like it's nice to show it, but I feel like we've had that quite a few times, and mainly around Kaito, he's gone like, oh, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, Grah!
Well, you say that, but I think this is a lot different compared to those times. Like to me, this was more to do with he was happier back then when he didn't have to worry about his parents and he missed his parents, and it was that overwhelming sadness and despair that caused him to obviously wish those moments were back again. And obviously, because of Yak-chan and the way Kaito generally are, they've always pushed past it. They've just tried to have more fun. But deep down inside, there is a nostalgia value because they're always going to miss those times when they felt like their family was complete.
Mm.
I think that's what it's centering around this episode, so that's why they're affected. And it gives a little bit of difference to their character in a way because they're always so optimistic. And you've seen Kaito, he just goes everywhere happy.
Yeah. I think I think it's because it's been shown previously in one or two episodes that it's more of a, if the bad guys saw it, they could instantly go, oh crap, now we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the thing. I just think it's more thing. I will say though, I guaranteed love the fact that when they went back in time and they thought about it, everything went 4x9. And I was just like, I love these like little practical effects that they put in, and then suddenly like, it's like, no, we don't want this, and they kind of like push it aside, and I'm like,
Yeah.
do you know what? I kind of like that. I kind of do.
Yeah, I thought it was good. You know what you were saying about Zox's changer?
Yeah.
Going to that wooden thing. What did you think of Crocodile suddenly turning into a regular pirate ship?
I generally was like, that's not bad, but then I would kind of imagine it would have just fallen down rather than go blast off
Go,
into the background.
boom, yeah, that was a bit weird, but I suppose that's the only way they could think of doing it.
Yeah.
Unless it was the effect of, I don't know. It's a very tricky one, that one. I'm pretty sure I don't know if there was some kind of blast that Retro World let off to cause that change.
No, he just. I think it was just one of those things of that. How do we get rid of Vox? Just fling it off in the background, and then be like, "Oh no!" type thing. So we can get him out because he's not part of this episode mainly. Apart from like really at the end when they all turn into like they get their powers back and stuff like that. So that was the big. But I kind of would have liked to have seen them kind of watch a bit more. I just want to see Flint in that outfit because it just felt like
yeah, it was only a few minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I feel sorry for you.
it's just like I think that if you're going to utilize the whole thing, then use it. Like bring her in, and like, even if they watch from above and they do this whole thing of like, they can at least work through this and say, yeah, no, they're really worthy. I really like them. Let's join them soon, not too soon. Okay, and that's particularly it. But her being in that, oh, great, loved it.
Okay, there was a couple of other things I wish to discuss with everyone here. So, one of the things that we also did see in this particular episode is that this plan wasn't belonging to Barashatara or Iljarud. It was actually Gegi. I am so happy and at the same time surprised he has come up with a plan. I always considered that he was quite an intelligent guy, but I didn't think he was an active, like, general, as it were. Like,
Mm.
he seems always seem more like a pet. What did you think of Gegi being the mastermind of using Retro World?
I generally think he is the mastermind behind all of it.
You
Generally,
think?
yeah. Like I'm going to look him up. It's the bird, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
the anti Sekchan, as I like to
yeah.
call him.
And I still think he's the mastermind behind everything of it. It just seems more to the point. Like it wouldn't be surprised if at the very last episode or last few episodes, he destroys, he pecks the wall away, and then suddenly it's like I'm the one controlling this. It's been me, or he whispers into the ear. So I imagine that's what I kind of think. Um,
hmm
so it's interesting rather than having the other two come up. Let's use this monster of the week. Oh no, you couldn't have the main bad guy being angry at his pet. So
Yeah, I suppose. I wonder if Gegi was actually made by the professors, considering that Sekchan is so similar.
I reckon so. I reckon what you'll probably find out is that they've got some sort of device on them controlling them to make the gears to make the monsters, and they won't know. And then you'll probably get a thing of like, Kaito, is that you? Oh my god! And then that's it. They get turned back or something. Um, so I kind of think what's going to happen is like they're going to be controlled at some point, or if you don't do this, we've got your son, or we'll destroy your son. Yeah, it'll be some sort of little thing that they'll do because of that.
Oh, fair enough, fair enough. Another thing as well, um, I think it's probably the last thing to make before we continue onwards. The other thing would be that we've also seen one Sentai gear used in this
Mm,
because I didn't expect this. I didn't expect Retro World to be able to reverse time and cause it to go back. I honestly wasn't expecting that extra ability, so I thought this would be a different episode for that, but obviously it kind of matches the theme.
mm.
And because of the gear that we have featured in this episode, we had Time Ranger make an appearance. Did you think the ability to fast forward time, as it were, was a good representation of Time Ranger?
Yeah, well, it's the only one because obviously it's time based. So I imagine that was the only thing to kind of do it. Like they're the ones that can forward and go back through time and stuff like that. So I was just
Yeah.
like, I get this, I get that. You used it. It was instantly like, gonna use Time Ranger. Like I don't think there's anything else that would like suffice. So I kind of thought, well, if he's using ability to rewind and go back, they've got to use it. So as soon as they grabbed it, I was like, I know what gear that's gonna be.
I did like the time strike effect though. I thought that was really great. I never expected them to try and recreate that though, because I'm pretty sure they do that, don't they? They do get all the Rangers they're gonna do for a Sentai gear. This isn't stock footage or anything like that. They basically put them into the green screen, record what they need to do, and obviously um, put that as an as
Mm.
like a faded effect, as like a ghost for the particular show. Um, would you have considered the fact they might have used something like the time strike in that particular scene, or would you would expect a normal stance like all the others have been?
Normal stance with the clock in the background, and then maybe going like hit as one reverse time type
Yeah,
thing. That's what I kind of thought of. I didn't really kind of notice the whole, I don't know, the it just to go back type thing. I didn't realize they were going to do like an attack. I just thought they would just pose in time, and then I kind of thought there was going to be a battle because we've seen the other Sentai, the figures get really annoyed at, or one team's been annoyed. So I imagined for if
yeah,
they needed a bit of extra time, they would have reversed time, and then they would have got annoyed, and you'd
yeah.
have seen like red or pink go up and bop them on the head and be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that." And then they use the attack. So I thought some hijinks were going to happen, but they didn't. So.
Yeah. Okay, the final thing I would wish to say before we get onto the rating is I thought that the weirdest part of this episode, and yet kind of acceptable, was the part when Retro World stopped communication by making them say dialects and stuff that were old fashioned.
Mm.
I don't know if that's the case. I don't exactly know. I mean, I kind of lost what they were saying. I wasn't I
Yeah.
wasn't too sure myself. But what did you think of that particular event?
I just thought you just erased their memory or something like that. You know, brought it back to a time where they'd never met. So when I watched it back, they were like saying like, "Oh, we're gonna like fry up some bacon," or "Hey, this is what's gonna happen." I was like, "Oh, okay." I don't think it added anything to it. Like, I
It was funny seeing Juran, Gowon, and Katana's reaction when that was happening,
yeah.
though.
Uh, it just felt like it was a pointless thing. Like, if he used that ability on them previously, I could understand it to add a bit more depth to it. Where
Yeah.
you could have Kite going, I don't know what I'm saying, and it's stuff like he's going like Yellow Bell, Kite 38, and stuff like that. But it just felt a pointless thing to put in, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I see what they were trying to do. It was great, but like you said, I think it would have been better if they defined all of his abilities beforehand,
Yeah.
because it seemed like they were just giving him too much. Just like all of the different things he could have done, and they were just whacking it on. Kind of cool because that's what happens with any ranger when they're first debuting, especially sixth rangers, because obviously,
Mm.
oh, here's one ability. Oh, he's going to get another ability. Oh, and there's another ability. So,
Yeah.
because of what I was thinking in that regard, I let it get away with it
Mm.
basically.
Yeah, I just went like it didn't add to the story for me, so I was just like, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm 100% fine.
But nothing beats the way that Duran just in the Zenkaiger Duran Gowon form just to make it going, wait, what?
What did you say about that? What did you say about my mum?
I thought that was great. Okay, so this episode, let's go on to the episode rating as it were. Now, what would you give this out of 5 gears, Aaron?
Three, three is probably
Three.
yeah. Like
Yeah, go on.
I like the retroness, and I think that I just think it could have been just more to it. But again, Sek-chan was fine. You know, it was her kind of episode, so I was okay with it. But I felt like there could be a little bit more, just a little bit more.
Yeah, I honestly think that this episode was a 5. I'm
Really.
not gonna lie. I thought like it doesn't have a debut, but it was a very strong episode. It has character development. It has focus on someone that doesn't always get focused upon. It connects all the dots in different ways. We got a debut of storyline in a way because we have Gegi finally making like actually acting upon something, coming up with a plan. Ildraud and Bereshitama sort of got a little old for me at this point, so it was very refreshing.
Mm.
And then you have all of these uses of retro, and it was a way, I think, culturally to go, hey, new generation, this is something that was back in the old days. Um, it's something for you to experience. So, take a moment and look back at these days and appreciate it. I
Mm.
thought that was generally the story of the moral of this particular episode.
Kind of,
So yeah,
yeah, I can see it. You know, again, it was different. I just want a big monster to come along now. I want a new general to pop in at some point. I want more
did
Flint.
you like? Yeah, before we actually finish up, did you like the design of Retro World?
I thought it was very cartoony. So I didn't kind of pay much attention to it because I feel like you can tell which ones are the cartoony ones where, you know, you literally push him over, he's like, whoa, type moving a lot faster compared to like where if you got Stacy, he's more like he will kick your ass in a fight. So you kind of judge it. So I was just like,
Yeah,
he looked
Stacey
okay.
does. Yeah, unlike Barashitaro, which seems to be like he's trying to be dominating, but also the king. He seems to be throwing those fists down
Mm.
even like faster. So that was funny when they were doing that. But yeah, um, the actual fact that we see Stacy in his usual mood, it does look like the kind of guy that will look at you and you'll die.
Yeah.
Like he has way more of like a demonic presence compared to all of the others that are in the villain category for this particular season.
Yeah.
So would you be happy to meet me halfway and make this a 4-gear episode?
If you want to keep it a 5, that's fine. I'll move it to a 4, but I know you want to have a 5, so we'll turn it to a
No, no, no,
5.
no. It's cool. I'm going for 4. I'm gonna meet you halfway because if it's all a balancing act. Let me know, guys, if you
Yeah.
have any different views on what you should rate this, or what you would think this episode deserves a
Mm.
rating of. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything for this episode and talking about the different forms of vintage rangers in Super Sentai. So where can we find you on social media, Mark?
Pretty much LM on everything, bar Twitter, which is Mainstream Live. How about you, kind sir?
You can find me at Henshin Asset. Right down. Oh, no. I need to get used to the directions on this thing. It confuses me. So, and at Henshin Asset on both Instagram and Twitter. So, yeah, I think that's everything for today. So, thank you, my dudes. I'm so glad that this episode wasn't one of those filler episodes that I was expecting. So, let's find out if they keep the momentum going on the next episode. So, in the meantime, we'll speak to you all soon and see you guys next week. So, bye.
Bye.
Dee, dee, dee.